I didn't expect to be humiliated on Christmas. Not after I'd spent weeks planning the perfect gifts, baking my grandmother's apple pie from scratch, and carefully ironing the forest green dress I knew Mom always loved on me. But as I stood in the doorway of my parents' warm, candlelit dining room in Portland, Maine, I realized something. Every seat was taken. Not one of them was meant for me. I clutched the pie dish tighter as my brother Ethan looked up, his smirk razor sharp. "Why would we waste a seat on you?" he said, loud enough for the entire family to hear. And just like that, I understood. But before I tell you what happened next, and why this Christmas would be the last one I ever spent begging for a place in that house, let me take you back. Back to when I still believed love was something you could earn, if you just worked hard enough. My name is Claire Miller. I'm 35. And I used to believe that if I achieved more, spoke less, and smiled politely through the pain, my family would finally see me. But they never did. Not when I broke my wrist at 10 and sat in the school nurse's office for 2 hours. Because Ethan had a baseball game and no one picked me up. Not when I became valedictorian. And Mom told everyone, "It's not a big deal. The school's small." Not even last month, when I was featured on the cover of a national architecture magazine. And no one in my family said a word. Not a single message. Not even a thumbs up. So why did I keep showing up? Why did I spend years shrinking myself into smaller and smaller boxes, hoping they'd finally say, "We're proud of you"? I don't know. But what I do know is this. The moment Ethan said those words, "Why would we waste a seat on you?" something inside me broke. And something else finally woke up. I wasn't always the invisible one. There were moments, brief, flickering moments, when I thought I mattered. Like when I won the 3rd grade spelling bee and Dad clapped louder than anyone. Or when Mom let me stay up late to watch Christmas movies, just the two of us. But those memories feel like borrowed light. Because they were always followed by darkness. From the time I could walk, Ethan was the star. The firstborn. The heir. The one with the charming smile and the Little League trophies. Mom called him her miracle. Dad said he was built for greatness. Me? I was the quiet one. The careful one. The placeholder between their pride and their princess. Olivia, the youngest, was sweet and delicate. She got away with everything. When she broke Grandma's antique vase, she cried and said it was an accident. They hugged her. When I accidentally knocked over a glass of juice, I got grounded for a week. But it wasn't just the punishments. It was the silence. The way conversations would drift past me at the dinner table. The way my opinions were met with polite nods. Then forgotten before dessert. I remember once, in middle school, I got straight A's for the first time. I placed the report card on the fridge, smiling like maybe this time they'd notice. But that same day, Ethan brought home a local newspaper. He had been quoted in an article about the high school football team. My report card came down. His article went up. That was the pattern. Every time I did something worth celebrating, Ethan did something just a little louder. A little flashier. And the spotlight turned away from me, again. But the worst part wasn't him. It was Mom. She didn't need to say out loud that I was a disappointment. Her face said enough. When I tried to talk about my art in high school, she'd sigh and say, "That's nice, honey. But maybe think about something more practical?" When I mentioned applying to design school, she looked up from folding laundry and asked, "But what if you don't get in?" Never "You can do this." Never "I'm proud of you." Just doubt. Just hesitation. Even my birthday parties felt like obligations. One year, they forgot to invite half my class. Ethan had a football game the night before, and everyone was too tired to finish the planning. I spent the day opening gifts in front of a handful of neighbors, smiling through the disappointment like I was used to it. Because I was. I learned early not to expect much. Not because I wasn't trying, but because no matter how hard I tried, I was never the priority. I was the one taking photos instead of being in them. The one they forgot in Christmas cards. And even when I stopped asking for attention, they stopped offering it altogether. But some small part of me still believed that if I worked hard enough, became extraordinary enough, they'd finally see me. So I kept pushing. I got into the best architecture program in the state. Graduated early. Landed a job at one of the top firms in Boston. And when I called home to share the news, Mom said, "That's nice, dear. Ethan just bought a lake house." Of course he did. At some point, Ethan stopped competing with me outright. Because he didn't have to. He had already won the family. So instead, he focused on taking away anyone else who might have seen me. When I brought my first serious boyfriend, Adam, home for Thanksgiving, I was nervous, but excited. Adam was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely proud of me. He'd read my articles, asked about my projects, and once told me, "You're the most grounded person I know." For a while, I believed him. But then he met Ethan. And suddenly, everything changed. Ethan told stories all weekend. Harmless at first. Childhood mischief, family jokes. But then he started adding things. Small jabs. Twisted truths. Claire used to throw tantrums when Mom made her clean her room. She was obsessed with her high school English teacher. Weird phase, right? Adam laughed, politely at first. But I saw the shift in his eyes. The doubt. The discomfort. By the time we left for Boston, Adam was distant. A week later, he said he needed space. I never even got a real reason. It happened again with Jason. And with Melissa, my closest friend from grad school. They'd meet my family. They'd meet Ethan. And slowly, they'd disappear. At first, I thought it was me. Maybe I overshared. Maybe I was too intense. But then I found the text. Jason had shown Ethan a photo of us at a concert. Ethan responded, "Good luck, man. She's brilliant, but emotional. You'll see." 4 words. You'll see. That's all it took. It wasn't just relationships. When I got promoted to project lead at my firm, I called home, hoping to share the moment. Dad congratulated me. Then immediately said, "Did you hear Ethan just closed a 10-unit property in Camden?" Big return. Every win I had became a backdrop for Ethan's triumphs. If I designed a building, he bought one. If I earned an award, he got quoted in a magazine. And no matter how small his news was, Mom made sure to share it in the family group chat. With emojis. With exclamation points. My achievements? Just thumbs up. Sometimes not even that. I started pulling back. Fewer calls. Fewer visits. But the guilt always pulled me back in. Because what if this time was different? What if Ethan had changed? What if they finally saw me? Spoiler alert. They didn't. One Christmas, I brought a portfolio of my latest project. A sustainable housing development that had just won a regional award. I waited patiently, watching Ethan show off pictures of his new boat. I waited until dessert to bring it up. I said, "We just got approval to expand the design into Vermont. It's the biggest project I've led so far." Mom blinked. Then smiled politely and said, "That's nice, dear. Ethan, are you still taking Rachel to Cancun this spring?" Like my life was background noise. Like I was background noise. And Ethan? He just grinned at me from across the table. The way he always did. Like he knew I'd keep coming back for more. Like he knew I still wanted their approval. And maybe I did. Until I didn't. There was one person in my family who never made me feel small. Grandma Lucille. She wasn't flashy or loud. She didn't play favorites. She just saw me. When I was little, she used to tell me stories. About her childhood, about the war, about the tiny sapphire locket she wore every single day. This locket crossed the Atlantic with my mother, she once whispered. Stitched into her coat lining during the war. She said it belonged to the women in our family who endured. Who carried quiet strength. Someday, it'll be yours, she promised. Clasping it gently around my neck when I was 16. Not because you're the oldest. Not because you're the youngest. But because you understand what it means to hold pain and still keep going. I never forgot that moment. Not when she grew ill. Not when she passed. Not even when I stood beside her casket and heard Ethan joke to Olivia. Guess Claire gets the guilt points now. After the funeral, I went into her bedroom quietly. Not to steal, not to claim. Just to find that locket. To feel something solid. Something that still believed in me. But the jewelry box was empty. I searched every drawer. Every velvet pouch. Gone. Later that evening, as we gathered in the living room for tea, I saw it. Around Olivia's neck. Shining under the lamp like it had never belonged to anyone else. My breath caught. I pulled her aside, my voice barely above a whisper. That was Grandma's. She said she was leaving it to me. Olivia blinked. She gave it to me. Before she died. In private. It wasn't true. I knew it in my bones. But when I turned to Mom for support, she just said, Claire, this isn't the time. Don't make this harder than it already is. Dad didn't even look up. And Ethan? He stood by the fireplace, sipping his coffee with that same old grin. Like he was watching a game he'd already won. I didn't say another word. I didn't scream or demand or accuse. I just sat back down. While Olivia smiled and thanked everyone for coming. At every family gathering after that, she wore it. The locket. Like a badge. Like a message. You were never chosen. You never will be. It wasn't about the jewelry. It was about the only promise in my family that ever felt real. Being taken from me like everything else. That was when I started therapy. Dr. Hayes didn't tell me to cut them off. She never used words like toxic or narcissist. She just asked questions. What does it cost you to keep chasing their approval? What would it look like to stop? I didn't have answers. Not right away. But the questions lingered. They followed me into sleepless nights. Into long walks around the city. Into silent dinners alone in my apartment. And slowly, clarity came. Not in lightning bolts. But in quiet, steady waves. They weren't going to change. Ethan wasn't going to suddenly apologize. Mom wasn't going to magically love me better. Dad wasn't going to stand up. And if I wanted peace, real peace, it had to come from within me. Not from them. So I did something I never thought I would. I started collecting the receipts. Screenshots. Emails. Text messages. Voicemails. Recordings. Every quiet cruelty. Every smug lie. And I tucked them away. Not to punish. But to remember. So that the next time I started doubting myself, I could look back and know. It wasn't me. I spent 3 weeks wrapping the perfect Christmas gifts. Not just buying things off a list. But really thinking about what each person would love. For Mom, I hand-knitted a scarf in her favorite shade of blue. The kind of soft wool she used to wrap around me before school when I was little. For Dad, a first edition copy of his favorite mystery novel. I'd found it in a vintage shop tucked away in Vermont. He used to read it to me at bedtime, before Ethan started football and bedtime stories disappeared. For Olivia, a custom photo album of her wedding prep. I'd quietly collected the pictures myself, edited them late at night, and added captions that I hoped would make her laugh. And for Ethan, something else entirely. Not revenge. Not drama. Truth. Wrapped in the same silver paper as the others. Tied with the same blue ribbon. But what sat inside wasn't a sweater or a gadget or a novelty gift card. It was a collection. A record. Screenshots of messages Ethan had sent to family members. Subtle, slicing things like, "Claire's been acting strange again. I'm worried. I think she's projecting, she's always been jealous of Olivia." Emails where he planted doubt, twisted words. Made himself the hero of every story. A recording from last Thanksgiving, where he bragged to a cousin about how easily he could steer Mom's opinion, just by showing a little concern. And finally, a copy of Grandma Lucille's will. The original. The one Ethan had intercepted. The one that clearly named me as the Locket's intended heir. I found it while organizing the digital archive for her estate. A task the family had casually handed to me because I was good with documents. Buried in a sealed envelope among old insurance papers. It had sat untouched for months. He must have assumed no one would look that far. I almost confronted him right then. Almost picked up the phone. Almost sent a mass email. But I didn't. Because I wanted to be strategic. I wanted this to be my last attempt, my final act. To make them see. Not scream. Not cry. Just see. Dr. Hayes had warned me. Confrontation rarely changes entrenched family dynamics, she said. But sometimes, it's necessary for you, not them. So I made peace with whatever might happen. Whether they read it or threw it away. Whether they screamed or went silent. This wasn't about their response. It was about me finally stepping out of the role they'd written for me. The quiet girl in the background. The one they could shape and edit. Erase and recast. This time, I would write the ending. I slid the envelope beneath Ethan's plate before dinner. During the last moments of table setup. No one noticed. They never did. I smiled, folded my hands. And waited. The house looked like something out of a holiday catalog. Twinkling lights on the porch. 2 matching wreaths on the front doors. Inside. The table was set with china we only saw once a year. Folded napkins shaped like Christmas trees. Silver cutlery polished to a mirror shine. 12 people were invited. I was the 12th. Or so I thought. I arrived on time, pie in hand, cheeks flushed from the cold. Heart tapping out a nervous rhythm. I had worn my best dress, forest green, fitted just right. My hair was curled. Makeup soft but intentional. I looked like someone worth inviting. Mom opened the door with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Claire. You're right on time." As if that were a problem. She took the pie without comment, turned, and disappeared into the kitchen. No one offered to take my coat. No one said, "We're so glad you're here." In the living room, laughter spilled over from the couch, where Ethan held court with uncles and cousins. Dad slapped Patrick, Olivia's husband, on the back and called him my son-in-law. When Mom re-entered, she glanced at me and called out flatly, "Miranda's here." Yes, she used my full name. Like I was a guest. Like she didn't raise me. A few heads turned. Some offered tight smiles. Olivia hugged me briefly and whispered, "Mom's been on edge all day. Maybe, don't bring up work stuff tonight." As if my success was offensive. Then Olivia arrived, with her husband, and stole the room. She wore the locket. My locket. The one Grandma promised me. The one Ethan stole. The one she still pretended belonged to her. My hands trembled slightly as I placed the gifts beneath the tree. I approached a group talking about their ski trip to Aspen. Offered a smile. A comment. A question. They turned their bodies away. Nodded vaguely. And continued as if I wasn't there. When it came time for the family photo, Mom began arranging everyone like puzzle pieces. Travis and Rachel in the center. Olivia and Patrick over here. Alicia on the right. I waited. Stood off to the side. Mom? I asked softly. Where should I stand? She blinked. As if surprised I was still there. Oh. Actually, could you take the photo? You're always good with those techie things. I took the picture. Smiling family. Perfect table. Perfect lies. Then I noticed it. 10 name cards. 10 chairs. 10 forks. 10 wine glasses. 10 cloth napkins. 12 people. But only 10 places. I counted again. And again. Where was my seat? I found Mom in the hallway. Hey. I didn't see my place card on the table? She didn't meet my eyes. Just handed me the ice bucket. Don't make a fuss right now, Claire. Please. We have company. I stood frozen. Ice melting in my hand. And then I heard it. Her voice, whispering to my aunt in the kitchen. She always ruins the mood. Just let her sit in the den. Travis specifically asked to keep it intimate. Intimate. That was the word she used. To explain why her daughter didn't have a seat at Christmas dinner. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just, done. I walked into the dining room as everyone began finding their seats. My father was at the head. Ethan at his right. Olivia next to Mom. Alicia and her boyfriend grinning across the table. I stood at the doorway. Watching them settle in like this was normal. Like this was fine. No one said a word. Until my Aunt Barbara glanced up, saw me still standing. And quickly looked away, pretending to fix her napkin. I took a breath. Mom, I said clearly. Where should I sit? The table fell silent. Mom's smile was tight. Practiced. Oh, Claire. The table's quite full. We thought maybe you could eat in the den. Just for today. Then Ethan leaned back in his chair and said. Why would we waste a seat on you? And just like that. Every hope I'd packed into this evening unraveled. Every stitch of the scarf I made. Every dollar I spent. Every second I'd waited for this year to be different. My heart pounded. My fingers shook. But I didn't cry. Instead, I walked slowly to the tree. Picked up Ethan's gift. Returned to the table. And placed it gently next to his plate. The envelope sat there, quiet and unimpressive. Silver wrapping. Blue ribbon. Just like all the others. Ethan picked it up with a smirk. No urgency. No suspicion. Probably expecting another novelty gift, maybe a joke tie or a gag mug. He slid his thumb beneath the flap. Ripped the tape. Pulled out the first page. His expression didn't change, at first. Then his eyes scanned faster. His fingers stiffened. The smirk faded. He flipped to the next page. And the next. His jaw tightened. By the time he reached the voice transcript, he looked up. Straight at me. I held his gaze. Didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just stood there, silent. He shoved the papers back in the envelope like they were burning his hands. What the hell is this? He asked, voice low but sharp. No one else had spoken yet. All forks were down. All wine glasses forgotten. Olivia reached for the envelope. He yanked it away. "It's nothing," he snapped. "Claire's just being dramatic, again." But I was already moving. I turned to Mom. Her lips parted, then pressed tight. Like she was holding in words she couldn't shape fast enough. Her eyes darted between Ethan and me, searching for a version of the truth that made her comfortable. "Claire," she finally whispered. This isn't the time." But her voice lacked certainty. It wasn't a command. It was fear, dressed up as composure. For the first time, I saw it. The cracks in her control. The realization that maybe she'd backed the wrong son. "The locket was meant for me," I said quietly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. Just the truth, laid out in the stillness. Grandma's will. Her letters. Her own handwriting. All of it's in there. I looked at Olivia. "I don't blame you. But you were lied to." Then I turned to my father. "You let Ethan speak for the whole family. 4 years. Maybe you didn't know. But now you do." Finally, I faced Ethan. He was sweating. Angry. Cornered, but still trying to look untouchable. "You spent years making sure no one ever saw me. But now they've read your words. Heard your voice. And whether they admit it out loud or not, they know." I stepped back from the table. Took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness. Not apologies. I just wanted you to sit with the truth. For once." No one moved. No one stopped me as I picked up my coat from the hallway chair. No one said, "Stay." And that was the clearest answer I'd ever gotten. I walked out into the cold. The snow had started to fall again, soft, slow, peaceful. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was running away. I was walking toward something. Myself. I didn't go home that night. Not to the apartment I had decorated with neutral walls and polite furniture, hoping one day it would feel like mine. Instead, I drove. Nowhere specific. Just away. Past the frozen lakes. Past the quiet gas stations lit in flickering neon. Past the kind of silence that used to make me ache. But this time, the silence felt like clarity. I checked into a small inn outside Camden. Wood-paneled walls. A fireplace that crackled with warmth. A window that opened to nothing but snow and pine trees. I curled up with a blanket and let the quiet hold me. No one called. No one texted. And for the first time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. The next morning, I walked to a bookstore in town. Bought a leather-bound journal. Sat by the harbor with gloves on and started to write. Today, I stopped asking to be chosen. In the days that followed, I made space. I took down the family photos that made me feel invisible. Donated the dresses I bought just to win their approval. Deleted every calendar reminder for birthdays they never remembered mine on. And in that space, I built something new. I had dinner with friends who always saved me a seat. Laughed over wine with coworkers who listened, really listened. Hiked alone in the woods and didn't feel lonely. I stopped asking if I was enough. Stopped replaying old arguments in my head. Stopped trying to fix a story that was never written for me to win. As for the locket, I let it go. Turns out, love isn't a thing you inherit. It's a thing you create. And I was finally ready to build mine somewhere new. This Christmas, I'm making Grandma's apple pie again. From scratch. Just like she taught me. But I'll be serving it in a kitchen filled with laughter. With people who don't need me to shrink. And if there's an extra seat at the table, it won't be wasted. It'll be waiting. For someone who knows they deserve to be there. Just like I finally do.